Hi everyone! Welcome to my next hiking video. I'm having such a good time out here. I'm going to record something that I mentioned in the previous video, and that is I'm going to talk about some of my narcissistic relationships, because I don't know why, but to me they're funny now. They weren't funny at the time, but because I figured it all out, now I think they're kind of hilarious. And they're hilarious in kind of a sad way. Especially if you're suffering with someone that's really, really confusing and especially abusive. But I'm going to give you some tips and some thoughts in case you are, and hopefully make you laugh a little bit, hopefully. So I'm going to turn this, and I chose this park especially because it's a Saturday and there are a lot of tourists up, but there is no one here, and it's a very small park. But I was raised, of course, by narcissistic parents, and that to me is like a programming early in childhood, because a narcissistic parent will embed into that child's mind all of the very twisted tactics that narcissists use, and a child will assimilate that into it being normal. And I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't have any understanding of psychology really, but children are just so open books, and they, of course, depend on their parents for survival. And when I grew up in a very twisted environment, I was torn between, is this crazy? Or are they right? Is there something wrong with me? Or am I okay? And that is extremely damaging, because of course that will affect you in the years ahead. But having believed that I had no redeeming qualities, or very few, I married men who believed I had no redeeming qualities, or not many. And I guess it was subconscious. I was just compounding my belief that I did not have any redeeming qualities. Yet that torment in my brain continued. Wait a minute, this is all kind of crazy. How can someone tell me what I'm supposed to think? How does that possibly make sense? Now, if you tell a narcissist the sky is blue, I guarantee you they will come back and say, well, it won't be tomorrow, or it's a light blue, or no, it's blue and white because there's clouds. I mean, they will have a comeback so that they can supersede whatever it is you said, so that they are more important, or rather they feel more important. But the truth of the matter is, most of what they say is so darn ridiculous. It can it can make your mind feel like it's in a blender. I mean, and they tell you with a straight face, you know. For instance, my husband, my first husband, before I married him, he didn't come home one night after a party, and I had stayed home to take care of his children. Believe it or not, that's a whole nother story. And so when he came home the following morning, I asked him where he'd been, and he looked at me with not a care in the world, and he said, what's the big deal? We're not married. I can do whatever I want. Why are you even questioning me? It's none of your business. Well, here's why I stayed with that man and ultimately married him. I really believed that I was not deserving of an answer. Isn't that sad? Because when you've been trained to be around a narcissist, you're taught that your feelings and thoughts don't matter. Now, I'm sure psychiatrists would have a field day with this one, but I believe a lot of this is all subconscious. We're not consciously saying, okay, I'm going to believe him, but we just do it, and maybe it's even habit. So, many times, you will see very passive, I'll use women, but I guess it could go either way. Very passive women with a narcissistic man, or vice versa, because of their own inadequacies. And they will go along with that false sense of self the narcissist has, because they don't have a firm sense of their own selves. I hope that makes sense, because I was clueless who I was. And I figured, at least I'm somebody if I'm with this guy. Well, what did I do? Years later, I got fed up and left him and married another narcissist, because I still hadn't learned. What I hadn't learned was that I did not deserve it, and that all of this crazy making that narcissists do are to control you. That's simple. And you want to know what else is even more crazy? They believe it. They believe what they're saying. I honestly believe that. And that's why it's not even worth it to try to reason with them, because they'll come up with another outrageous accusation after another to purposely confuse you, so that you either A, give up, or B, finally agree with them. And it can be mentally exhausting to try to reason with a narcissist. Now, here's a funny example I'm going to tell you. When I came up here, I need to have a wood stove installed, and there's a guy nearby that offered to do it. Cash only, he said, no check. So obviously the guy's working under the table, right? Well, I couldn't move in without that wood stove installed. So I'd call him and he'd say, I'll do it next week. And I was living somewhere else. It was the middle of winter. I'll do it next week. So the following week I'd call him. Did you do it? Nope, not yet. I'll do it in a few days. I've been busy. Okay. Waited a few days. Called back. My gosh, Barbara, you're in a hurry. I haven't been able to get to it yet. I'll do it in a few more days. I promise. Okay. Well, at the time, I didn't have anybody else to do it. I was beginning to really get frustrated. Well, it turns out this guy strung me along for the longest damn time, until eventually he came back with, gee, Barbara, you sure are impatient. People up here in Maine don't hurry. You don't know what it's like living up here. You need to learn how to take your time. You need to learn how to be patient. And you need to learn how to just simply live like everybody else up here in Maine. You just don't get it. Isn't that wild? He ended up installing it, but he did such a bad job I had to have it ripped out and redone professionally with a brand new stove with someone else. But see how they turn everything around on you? I wasn't in a hurry. I asked him to do a simple job and asked him for when it would be completed. But he completely turned it around that I was at fault for even bothering him. I was at fault for not being patient. And I was at fault for not understanding how people live up here in Maine, which is absolutely ludicrous. Because people up here in Maine can get things done without being called impatient. It is absolutely the craziest thing. But this guy actually thought that I would believe him. And here's another one. My ex-husband. Oh my gosh. I laugh about him now because he could say the darndest things. Now this is pretty hilarious. Whenever we had an argument, which would become more and more often as our relationship continued. He would call his mother and speak in his speak Sicilian to her, Italian. And he would just go, I could tell by the tone of his voice, he was just complaining about me, obviously. And it was very childish, very immature, and eventually it pissed me off. So I said, why do you always talk in Italian in front of her, in front of me rather? Why don't you just speak in English? And you know what he said? He looked right at me, dead center, with wide eyes, as honest it can be. And he says, because she doesn't understand English that great. Ha! I spoke English to her all the time and she understood me just fine. When we went for dinners, she would speak English with the rest of the family. And he would speak English to her. And I looked at him like, are you kidding me? You seriously think I'm going to believe that? But see, that was his way of not accepting responsibility that he was an immature mama's boy. And they will do that without any problem whatsoever to manipulate you into not pursuing the subject anymore and calling them out. I just think it's hysterically funny. But at the time, it was crazy making. And I went along with it only because I kept thinking, oh, this is just him. He'll quit doing this. But he didn't. He kept on and on until I got to the point where I wasn't sure which was true and which wasn't true. And honestly, when a narcissist speaks, most of what they say isn't true. That's probably the most important thing that I can say in this video. So if you want to hear more about my narcissistic relationships, I've got some doozies. And yes, I made some very, very bad decisions. But I learned and I'm still here. And I can talk about it. And hopefully share my stories with you to help you understand a narcissist's craziness. Because they're not in reality. They're in their own twisted reality where they have to be admired, have to be the major focus of any discussion, and they have to be admired. Absolutely is at the top of their list. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you'd like to hear any more about my narcissistic relationships. I'll try to save the funny ones and not the sad ones. But maybe I'll mix them together. It's still entertaining. Thanks so much, everyone. I hope you're all having a really great day. Take care.